Emily, it's so wonderful to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. Would you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey into music? I can detect that you have a Welsh accent. Did you have a musical upbringing like so many people in Wales do?
Well, yes, my parents are definitely music lovers. In fact, they met playing in a youth orchestra, so when they were 12 and 14. So music has definitely been an important part of my family's lives, although there are no professional musicians. But my grandfather on one side was a choral conductor and organist. And on the other side, my grandmother was a keen amateur violinist, and I think would have taken it further in different times. So music was always around, and we were taken to concerts or ballet, opera when we were small. And I learnt recorder when I was, guess 9 at school. And then one day I stumbled across my father's old flute and I could get a noise out of it. And the fingering sort of worked something similar to that of recorder. So that went quite quickly. And so quite quickly, my parents realized that I wasn't going to let this go and that they were going to have to find a flute teacher. So that was how it all started, really. I was 10. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I read that you trained at Junior Royal College of Music and then on to Senior Royal Academy of Music. So what was the training like in London?
Well, the junior department of the Royal College of Music was wonderful. That happens on a Saturday. So after 5 days of regular school, Monday to Friday, and my parents were both teachers, so they were very keen for us both to do normal, regular school. My sister Catherine Beynon is a harpist, also professional, also playing in an orchestra. She plays in the orchestra in Luxembourg. And from when I was about, I think I must have been 12 and my sister was maybe 9, or maybe I went for 1 year before she joined. I can't really remember. We used to go to the junior department of the Royal College of Music, which was a sort of Saturday school, and you would have your first instrument, your second instrument. You would maybe have a choir, an orchestra, oral training, history of music, theory, all those kind of things. And it was a filled school day with all subjects relating to music, which was just bliss. And so suddenly I wasn't the freaky kid at school who liked classical music. All my friends around me at Saturday school, they all liked classical music as well. So we fitted right in. That was wonderful. So I stayed there from 12 until the end of my sixth form. And I wanted to study with William Bennett, and he taught at the Royal Academy. And luckily I'd got a place at the Royal Academy. So I switched my allegiances from RCM to RAM and had 4 very happy years at the Academy with William Bennett as my teacher.
Amazing. What was it like studying with William Bennett? Because I saw a masterclass that he did from YouTube, and what really struck me about his approach is that it was all about the music, and that, even if there was a technical thing, that it would always be there to serve the music. It wouldn't just be a technical exercise. And also his approach was just so full of joy and freedom and just, and I see that. And now I see that in, so many people who've been taught by William Bennett. And I think that's, that's what we all want as musicians, isn't it? We just don't want to be, the technique can sometimes get in the way of us emoting. And what we want is just freedom, don't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, he very much taught from out of the music and more specifically from sound. So what kind of color do you want to create? What consonant does that note start with? Is it a t or a d or maybe a p or a h? So really this sound of the flute, always having in mind the inspiration of the voice and the violin. Then the next level is shaping each phrase and really thinking about where is the high point of each phrase, where are we going to, where are you taking the listener? And then technique was anything which got in the way of that expression, really. I firmly believe that myself, that if you can hear it, if you're reaching for a sound in your imagination, your body will find a way to it. That doesn't mean that technique can't be practiced in an isolated way. Far from it, actually. So you can, as you're working on a piece of music think, oh gosh, I haven't got very much vocabulary in terms of how to begin a note, for example. So then you can take that at one aspect and work on that in the sort of dry technical practice. Maybe you would love to be able to create a faster vibrato on a particular note, and that's not quite working. So you can take that isolated element into your dry technical practice. But the expression and this striving for your musical voice, always very much led by the music and the shape of the phrasing, the color of the sound. If it wasn't on a flute, which instrument would it be on? That sort of.
Yeah.
But such an expressive, such a creative, imaginative teacher.
Yeah.
It was a great privilege, obviously, but it was such fun. It was really a lot of fun. Of course, a lot of hard work, but the pleasure that Wib used to have in playing music, he absolutely shared that and spread that to his students. And I think it's a great credit to him that in striving to find one's musical expression, I think he never tried to fit people into one particular mold. So all his students sound so different. And he was really worked on trying to develop your creativity, your imagination. What do you want to say with the music? What is the composer offering us as hints? And how to use that to bring the sound to the audience.
Mm-hmm. And now it's up to people like you to pass on his methodologies and to pass on that legacy to the next generation. I mean, that must be quite a responsibility, but also a great honour as well.
Absolutely. You put it perfectly. It's a huge honour to try and responsibility to pass on his legacy. And I have to say this, I don't think I teach a single lesson without quoting Wib at some point and, sharing the text that he might have written for a particular phrase, or to share how he saw a character of a piece of music. So very vivid teaching. I can, see him when I'm playing certain phrases. I can see his gesture. I can hear how he would play it.
Yeah, I got to speak to Daniel Palethorpe a few months ago, and he was saying that he thinks about William Bennett's sound every day when he's, playing, doing his practicing. So that really must be a sign of the impact that he had on his students.
Absolutely, yes. Not a day goes past when I'm not thinking of his musicality and his voice, his flute voice, his singing voice. He was a real character. Yeah.
Amazing. And so I then read that you then went to Paris and trained with Alan Marion. Why did you decide to study overseas as opposed to continuing with your postgrad in the UK?
As a child, we'd lived abroad. Yes, before I started playing the flute, my parents lived in Nigeria before I was born. We lived in Sweden for a couple of years when I was very, very small. And then my first school years were in Italy. We lived in Rome for 4 years. So I think I always had a little bit of the sort of gypsy spirit in me. And I love travel in all its forms. And for me, that's very much an enormous extra sort of bonus to being a professional musician is the traveling I get to do in my professional life. The flute makers, I was playing a Louis Lot, and William Bennett had studied, of course, in Paris, and all the methods that all the de la sonorité and Tafnel and Gobo are in Paris. And so Paris was, right at the forefront of my flute mind. So when I was thinking about going to continue my studies, I always dreamt of going to Paris. And I met Alain Marion when I was doing the Nice summer school. I think it was maybe the end of my first or second year at the academy, and did a summer course and loved the way that Marion taught. And it was such a contrast with the way that Wib taught, actually. And it was very much, Wib worked on such tiny detail and really honing, the legato between notes. We could spend a whole lesson on one line or maybe two lines of music. So incredible sort of microscope work, if you like. And Alain Marion took a much more a much broader approach, if you like. Or maybe that was just what I needed at that stage of my study. I'm not quite sure. But the way it worked out anyway, I had I was in Paris for 8 months studying with Marion because I'd already actually got my first professional job in Glyndebourne Touring Opera.